What if I told you that most churches are doing ministry differently than Jesus did? Jesus never told his followers to build a university. He never told them to create programs. He never told them to hold conferences. He told them to make disciples. Today we're going to look at the method Jesus used to change the world and ask whether we've replaced it with something else. If I asked you today, who are you discipling right now? How would you answer that question? Stay with us to the end of the video.
The King's Method is what Jesus did to propagate the message of the gospel across planet Earth. And I believe there are other methods to propagate the gospel, like this one. We're using YouTube. Other people might use radio, TV, newspapers. All those things I think are valid. All those things have their place, but I don't think we should neglect the King's Method in order to do our method. So let's take a look at this way that Jesus is propagating the gospel around the earth. To me, he basically just tells his people, hey, you follow me. And, I asked our church Sunday, have you ever thought it was strange that Matthew, Simon, all these disciples, when Jesus says, hey, follow me, they just immediately drop everything?
That is kind of strange.
Yeah. I mean, most people would be like, hey, I can't follow you, dude. I got a job. People are counting on me over here. I said, but the reason they follow him, there's a thing in the first century Jewish culture was that the rabbinic teaching and the gospel, not the gospel, but the Torah, the Bible, the Old Testament scriptures were the most important thing in the culture. And so for a Jewish rabbi to call you, it would be the same thing in our culture as, the San Antonio Spurs drafting you into the first round.
Okay.
Would you go?
They need help.
Yeah, you'd go.
Yeah, I would go. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably drop your job at the factory to go play professional basketball.
Sure.
So when Jesus, the itinerant Jewish rabbi, shows up and says, hey, come follow me, every Jewish listener understands that he's inviting you into his rabbinic school. I want to make some distinctives to help our listeners and you and me really discuss this, but there are differences between what I'm going to call the Hebraic educational model and the Greek educational model, because Jesus was, we've already discussed, a Jewish rabbi, so he's got this Hebraic educational process that he is going to use to reach his disciples, who in turn are going to reach the world. And then but a lot of us in the United States, if you're listening to this in the United States, you've been through public schools, you have probably been more under the influence of a Greek educational model, because the Greeks had a different philosophy about education than the Hebrews, than the Jews. So let me give you some interesting distinctives. Right. In the Hebraic educational model, knowledge is relational. In the Greek model, knowledge is informational. In the Hebraic model, truth is lived. In the Greek model, truth is analyzed. In the Hebraic model, emphasis is on obedience. In the Greek model, emphasis is on understanding and learning. This is an important distinctive, number 5. The Hebraic educational model, the goal is to become like the teacher. In the Greek model, the goal is to learn from the teacher. The Hebraic model, there's learning through imitation. In the Greek model, there's learning through instruction. The Hebraic model has a teacher-centered life, and the Greek model has a teacher-centered classroom. The Hebraic model says, follow me. The Greek model says, listen to me. The Hebraic model is centered on apprenticeship. The Greek model is centered on academics. The Hebraic model is centered on character formation. The Greek model is centered on intellectual development. The Hebraic model is centered on whole person transformation, while the Greek educational model is centered on mental enrichment. So in the Hebraic model, the student follows the rabbi's lifestyle. In the Greek model, the student studies the philosopher's ideas. In the Hebraic model, learning occurs everywhere. In the Greek model, learning occurs primarily in formal settings. In the Hebraic model, transformation is the goal. In the Greek model, accumulation of knowledge is the goal. So I share those things with you because in some ways, I'm going to bash on the Greek educational model a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I'm not going to bash on it too much, because I think in some ways
It
the
has
Greek
merits.
models, yes, the Greek model is better than nothing.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing. But I would say that our culture in the educational system has permeated our church. Most churches, if they have like a Sunday school classroom or a home group, these things are a little more focused on the Greek educational model. And the Greek educational model creates some funny things. I can remember being a child and going to the grocery store with my mom and seeing one of my school teachers at the grocery store. And I would just kind of wonder, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. So,
Like, you don't shop.
yeah.
You live at that school in that room,
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know they even had a life, outside of that classroom.
Yeah.
And it was so awkward, to see them in a non-school setting. But that's because, we've adopted the Greek system. And if a person was homeschooled, if you're listening to this and you were homeschooled, that was probably a much more Hebraic educational model, because your parents, they love you. And my wife's a school teacher. I've been a school teacher. And yeah, I care for my kids. I care for my students.
I've been a school teacher.
I think it's important, don't you, to really love your students?
Absolutely.
And try to empower them and help them. But I'm telling you, I think moms can love their kids better or more than a teacher. Now, some moms are messed up. I'll give you that. There's some messed up moms out there. But for the most part, there's nobody going to love you like your mom. So I want to move into some of Jesus's last words to his disciples. So Jesus follows this Hebraic educational model to train his guys, his disciples. We know there are levels to this thing. There's John, the beloved disciple. There's Peter, James, and John, the inner three. Then the other 9 disciples to round out the 12. And then I think he sends out 72, 2 by 2, to cast out demons in the gospel somewhere.
I was thinking 70, but it could have been 72.
And then in the upper room, there's 120.
Yeah.
And and then we see the multitude. We see, I think, 3,000 people saved on the day of Pentecost. So we've got concentric circles of influence around Jesus. Jesus has got his inner group.
Yeah.
We know Jesus doesn't treat everyone the same way.
Yeah, Peter, James, and John were his inner group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They saw special things that the other disciples didn't get to see. All right, so in Matthew 28:18, Jesus comes to his disciples and he says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." So here we have the Lord Jesus, who has exhibited with his life the Hebraic educational model to his disciples, telling them, now you do what I did. I believe that's what he's saying. He's telling his disciples
I think
to
so
make
too.
disciples. So if this system works, it's disciples making disciples. And so if I'm a disciple, I'm trained under a discipler, or someone that knows more than I know about whatever subject we're talking about. Let's just say it's Christian things. And so now I grow under their tutelage, and I learn and I observe. Then I receive enough of the substance of what they're trying to give me to where I can function and have success. And then there's enough left over where I can start a team of disciples. I can have people around me that I'm pouring my life out for, who honor that and honor me. Yeah. And there's mutual respect. And so now they're growing, they're learning, and they're receiving what I'm offering them to a point to where I call it critical mass. They get to a place of critical mass where they have enough, they've got enough. It's like a child, when my kids were like 14, I didn't want to kick them out of the house. I didn't want them out of the house because I knew you're not ready.
Yeah.
The world's tough out there and you don't know enough. You're not ready. But once they turned 18, they graduated from high school. They started college. They went to college. One of my kids went into the Air Force. comes out of the Air Force. I'm like, hey man, you could teach me some stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, you know what I mean? The kids, they get to a certain place where they're not 40 years old. You know, they don't know what a 40-year-old knows, but they know enough to get by. And if they need to call you, they can always call you. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think this is the method that Jesus used, and this is the method that Jesus told his disciples to use. You know, I don't think Jesus said, "Hey, go build a university and put those kids in there and teach them how to study the Bible in the university." Now, I'm not against the Greek educational model,
Right.
but I think in the midst of the university, if you have a professor that takes a personal interest in your life and starts mentoring you, the Greek structural system has created a habitation for the Hebraic model to operate. And I believe that relationship between that professor and that student is going to net the best results for the student. Just sitting in a room and making mental assent to biblical concepts has merit, okay? But it's not going to produce. I've got a friend, he went into Bible school. He went through Teen Challenge, and he flourished as a Teen Challenge student. He grew, he learned. Teen Challenge is a hands-on discipleship ministry. So he did great. Then he went into Bible college because he loved Jesus. Jesus set him free from his mental insanity. I mean, he was just on fire for God. So he went into Bible school, graduated from Bible school, and the Bible school where he was at, they gave him a church. After he graduated, he took a missions, I forgot what they called it, a missions church or something like that. He couldn't run it. He couldn't handle it. He could not process the problems and the challenges and the interpersonal conflicts in a local church. He did not have the ability to do it. So he ended up getting into the trades, and he took a job as a tradesman and worked as a tradesman for years and did a great job and had a lot of pride in that. Just kind of leave me alone, let me do my job kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And ended up where I met him, he was working at Teen Challenge. That's where I met this guy. So to me, it's possible that the university where he went to Bible school did not train him properly for ministry because of the outcomes.
Right. I see your point. Yeah.
So, and I've got friends who have graduated from seminary, and often they'll joke about it and call it cemetery.
Yeah, I've heard that same expression.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Well, there's a little truth in these little euphemisms. There's a little truth. Why do they call it that? Well, they call it that because they educate you to the point of, like, they put your fire out. It's just like, golly, man, this is, whew.
As you were talking about the difference in the Hebraic and the Greek system,
yeah.
Here was the thought that's come to me. It's to me, it's like a person who, and I have people and I know people that are this way. Some of those people can learn just by instruction how to do something, but others have to be shown how to do that. In other words, they want that hands-on experience. So I kind of picture that. That's kind of the way it is in Hebrews. They're being shown how to do it. Yeah. And they're following along with what the teacher or the rabbi, in the case of Jesus, is doing. But in the other system, they're not necessarily out there hands-on. They're just telling them in a form that they can try to visualize in their mind what's going on.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I pictured this in my mind as you were talking about it. Is that pretty close? Or
yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a flaw in the Greek model because you're going to lose kinesthetic learners. There's visual learners.
Say that word again.
Auditory learners and kinesthetic learners.
Kinesthetic?
Kinesthetic. They like to touch it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like there's some people that want to put something on their hands. Like I'm an auditory learner first, but I'm kinesthetic second. I'm visual third. So I developed auditory learning skills because I did not want to read. But I knew I had to get through school, so I would intently listen to the teacher talk, and I knew I was trapped at school. I couldn't leave. I had to be there. So I thought, well, while I'm here...
Might as well learn.
But I do not want to do homework. I'm not taking this stuff home.
Yeah.
I'm not doing homework. So I'm going to learn so I could make like D's on homework and A's on tests.
Okay.
Because I was locked in on the teacher and what the teacher was saying. But I didn't want to learn. I wanted to go home and be home. You know what I mean? I wanted to be done with school. I know I'm the only guy on earth that ever felt that way.
No, you're not. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'd rather be home too.
Yeah.
I pretended to be sick a few times in my life too to do that.
So Jesus gives what's called the Great Commission to his disciples. And he basically says, what I've been doing for you, I want you to do for others. You know, pay it forward. Dedicate your life. I've dedicated my life to you. I want you to dedicate your life to others. So let me give you my definition of the Great Commission. The Great Commission is Jesus' command to make disciples of all nations through intentional relationships marked by honorable commitment, where mature believers invest their lives in others and teach them to obey everything Christ commanded. And I really think that in the modern church, at least around the churches that I've been a part of, discipleship is not really the central focus of the ministry. There's teaching, there's preaching, there's worship. There's usually a lot of time and money spent on worship because people like it. You know, people want to hear good music. You know, so
they do.
You know, I don't know. I just think sometimes the churches are so under the cultural influence that they may miss the mark in some areas sometimes. And sometimes our church may be as guilty. You know, I'm not trying to say we've got it all figured out, but I'm just saying this discipleship idea, to me, should probably be the central focus of every church. Like you could ask your congregants at your church, who are your disciples? And they'll show them to you. Right there and right there. We always sit together. They sit with me at church. My disciples are always sitting here. But I think if you ask most people in most churches, who are your disciples? They just look at you crazy. Like, what do you think I am? Jesus or something? I don't have any disciples. Oh, that sounds weird. You know, okay, well, who are you mentoring? You know, that's maybe a more culturally acceptable word. Same thing.
Yeah.
Who are you mentoring right now? Who are you helping? Who are you equipping, empowering, meeting with, discussing things, discussing life with? Who are you mentoring right now? And most people say nobody.
That's a sad statement there.
Well, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I want to be wrong.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's pretty sad when people can't. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, who am I discipling?
Yeah.
You know, who am I mentoring? Yeah. So see, you're turning on some
would be one thing.
Lights here.
It'd be one thing if it was called the Great Suggestion.
Yeah.
You know, or if it was called the Great Recommendation. Yeah. I've got some recommendations I'd like you to consider.
Yeah, look,
it's called the Great Commission. It's like the thing. It's like the way to propagate the gospel. So like we do everything but this, basically. Like we can knock on doors, we can share the gospel, we can do crusades, we can bring in big preachers and fill stadiums with people. People can walk the aisle, you know, make a decision for Christ and all that. But this whole discipleship thing, it requires time. You know, we were talking off the air about cycling, and this has to do with discipleship. But I was out here riding, I was overweight, and I was riding my bicycle up and down the highway out here. He could have told me, hey, look, I'm going to draft you the whole way, and I'm going to beat you at the finish line.
And you'd have laughed at him.
But when he actually did it, I was like, okay, I got to learn about drafting.
Yeah.
This is something else. Tell me about this. So that was another little lesson I learned on the bike, you know, with Charlie. But this discipleship thing in the Christian sense, I think is really, really important, and I think it's really underutilized. The Great Commission, you know, it was originally given by Jesus to the people standing around him at his ascension. I believe it also has weight in our lives as well. I believe it's a directive for all believers in Christ to mentor and make disciples. Some people might think this method ended with Jesus, but it didn't. The Apostle Paul used the exact same model. So if you look at 1 Corinthians 11:1, the Apostle Paul, who, by the way, is just a man. He's not Jesus. He's not the Son of God. He's not the sinless, spotless Lamb of God. He's just a man. Now, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But he's not born of a virgin. You know what I mean? He's born of a natural birth. This guy's got a sinful nature in in his beginnings. 1 Corinthians 11:1, he says this, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Philippians 4:9 says this, what you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And then in Philippians 3:17, he goes on to say, join together in following my example. That's pretty amazing for him to say that, knowing he's just a man. He's a fallible man. The Greek, I'm going to paraphrase 1 Corinthians 11:1. I'm going to paraphrase it like this. Paul didn't exactly say this, but I think this is what from the Greek, this is what he's really saying. Pattern your lives after mine in the same way that I pattern my life after Christ. Imitate me only because I am imitating Christ. So there's an application to that phrase I want to make, which is a kind of a euphemism, which is eat the meat and spit out the bones. Or eat the hay and spit out the sticks if you're from the South. So Paul never said that. He never said that exact phrase. But for you and I, if we're going to disciple people, we have to tell them and let them know, hey, follow my example until I don't follow the example of Christ. At that point, we're going to have a very difficult conversation. Yeah. I'm going to have to come clean and say, yeah, hey, when I yelled at that guy for taking my parking place at Walmart, I shouldn't have done that. I got in the flesh. You know what I mean? I should have just let that go and found a different parking place. Besides that, I need the exercise anyway.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And you tell your disciple, you got to tell them. You can't act like, well, everything I do is right because you cannot do that. If you're discipling someone and you miss the mark in front of them, especially, you're going to have to tell them and say, don't do that. Don't do what I did there. I handled that incorrectly and I want to come clean. I wish I'd have done it differently. I wish I would have not done it that way, especially in front of you. I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to misrepresent Christ to you. Can you forgive me? And then this person being discipled can say, wow, yeah. And what did you just do? You just discipled them again on how to deal with failures, how to be honest, and how to come clean when you make a mistake. There's a lot of leaders who, golly, they act like they're perfect, and they walk around like, I'm just going to say it.
You mean they think they can't make a mistake?
It's not that. It's like they feel like they have to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's good to do right. I'm not here saying we should just be all slacky.
Well, I think you're perfect. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's nice. I can bring my wife in here. She can straighten you out on that.
Yeah, they always know better, don't they? No matter what.
I've got a good wife.
I know you do, man. I do too. And if every man ought to feel that way toward his wife, that he's got a good wife and he's, she's the perfect wife for me. I've told her so.
So to me, it would seem that the Apostle Paul is using very similar language to Jesus and inviting people to follow him and look at his life as a model. However, I think we all need to reemphasize the point. Paul was not Jesus, and Paul had flaws Jesus never had. Paul's call to make disciples gives us some insight into the discipleship process for us, because Paul was just a man. Although he was a great man, he was still just a man. I think many modern believers avoid discipleship completely because they don't feel qualified or have never had it modeled to them, so they have no idea how to do it. Healthy disciple makers are usually people who have been discipled themselves. So if you've never been discipled, you have probably no clue how to make a disciple. Like the whole process is
it's foreign to you.
Yeah, it's totally out of your wheelhouse because you've never seen it. Now you've maybe read about it. And there's a book called The Master Plan of Evangelism by Dr. Robert Coleman. It's a 1 million copies sold kind of book. I highly recommend that book to anyone who wants to take a deeper dive into the discipleship ministry of Jesus, and then the corresponding application of that method to the modern church. Coleman's, the book is not that complicated. I think it's like 12 chapters, how Jesus selected his disciples. He associated with them. He demanded that they be consecrated to him. There's certain things about things that Jesus did in this discipleship ministry that I think most unfortunately, a lot of Christian people They're inundated with Greek educational stuff. Like they go do Bible studies. And I'm not knocking Bible studies.
I know you.
I study the Bible too.
Yeah.
But there's something significant about a more mature believer that says, walk with me for a while. I had a mentor named Philip Roop. He used to tell me, get in the truck. Let's go. We're going somewhere. I'm like, all right, let's go. You mean you just got in the truck and didn't you ask where or what you were doing? That's exactly right. You know why? Because I knew that man.
Yeah.
I knew that man's heart. He wasn't going to hurt me. He had something he wanted me to do with him, and I wanted to do it because I liked him. I wanted to be around this guy. I honored him. I mean, he was just a cool guy. He was a youth pastor, and I was just like, I was blown away by the stuff he would say and do. I mean, I was like, wow, this guy's great, man. I wasn't like, well, I don't have time for all that. I got to go over and study a biology test. You know, I'm pretty important, you know. I never did that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just didn't. I had the grace to not be whatever. So we'd get in the truck, and I'd be like, well, hey, where are we going? He's like, oh, this guy called the church. Okay. So thinks he's got a demon. Okay. So I go out with Philip to cast out a demon, you know. So you learn quite a bit by being discipled. I mean, you see things.
Yeah.
You experience things outside of the quote-unquote classroom that you might never experience in the classroom. So I went through this program called Master's Commission. It's a discipleship training program. And then I worked at Teen Challenge for 2 years, which was as a residential discipleship training ministry. I spent 2 years discipling men when I use the word commune, it sounds like I'm marginalizing it, but it's just communal living. You know, these guys, we all live together. What's interesting about communal living is nobody puts up with your junk. You know, nobody puts up with your bad attitude, you know, because it's like Jacob and Laban. You know, when Jacob meets Laban, his father-in-law, he comes face to face with himself. They're both kind of cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean? They're both kind of tricky, sneaky guys. So when you get into Teen Challenge, you know, you're used to being around normal people who tiptoe around you because you have an anger problem and all that. When you get to Teen Challenge, nobody cares about your anger problem anymore. You just go ahead and get angry. And you might get in a fight. I mean, there'll be somebody that knock you out. I mean, you know what I mean? No one advocated violence at Teen Challenge.
Sure, I know what you mean.
There's no one there, and you're going to tell your roommate something. Well, your roommate might just not like it. Your roommate might have just as many problems as you have. And you know what I mean? He's not going to tiptoe around your junk. You know, he's not going to tiptoe around your little feelings and all that. So Teen Challenge was a phenomenal program to help.
It was a challenge.
Well, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were staff to staff, student to staff, and student to student challenges. I had challenges as a staff member with other staff. I had challenges with the students. But it was kind of just conflict resolution was part of the deal. I mean, you had to confront issues continually as a staff member there. But, you know, when you look at the success rates of Teen Challenge for drugs, which Teen Challenge was never started to be a drug program. Teen Challenge was started to be a residential discipleship training program. David Wilkerson started Teen Challenge, I think it was in New York, because gang members were getting saved. People who were in gangs, guys who were in gangs, didn't have a father probably at home. They had no mentoring, no training. The church was not that well equipped to handle that level of problems. So he started Teen Challenge. What was it? It's discipleship. You put your arm around a young man, you say, let's walk together for a while. I'm going to show you how to live. Our prisons are full of young men that didn't have that. Did they go to school? Probably. Yeah, they probably sat in school, ridiculing it. But what they they really needed was somebody put their arm around them and say, let me show you how to think.
Yeah.
Let me show you how to walk. Your attitude's wrong. You think things, you're foolish. You have foolish ideas. Let me show you why. Walk with me for a while. Okay, all right. So discipleship, this mentoring is really important, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. There's no doubt.
So many Christian people, I think they disqualify themselves from disciple making because they aren't Bible scholars, they aren't pastors, they aren't apostles. But discipleship isn't about being perfect. It's about helping someone take the next step you already know how to take. And the illustration that I think really lays this out is the Little League baseball coach. You know, most people do not expect their kid's little league baseball coach to have played in the major leagues. Like
not going to find many of those, are you?
No. You're going to have to take what you get.
Yeah.
What you're going to get is some has-been guy who played maybe a couple years in college somewhere at a Division III school. But I'll tell you one thing, that guy that was a has-been guy, he knows 100,000 things more than your 10-year-old boy about baseball.
Yeah.
And you. He knows more than you too, Mom. You'd be wise to listen to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So there's a lot of discipleship that goes on in athletics, in sports. And so very few people would demand that their little league baseball coach have played in the major leagues. I can't have my boy playing for anybody unless the coach played in the majors. I don't think there's a high school baseball coach. There's one guy that was at Walnut Ridge. I think he played pro baseball. One guy. But the illustration is simple. You don't have to be at the highest level of Christian living to disciple someone. You just have to be a little further down the road than the person you're trying to disciple.
Have something for them.
Have you been in the church over 10 years?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a new convert that shows up at your church. Would you feel qualified to disciple that person?
At my age?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're well qualified. Yeah. Are you Jesus?
Nope.
Are you Paul?
Nope.
But you're further down the road than they are.
Yeah, but I'm not Paul and but the disciples. Yeah.
Yeah.
Further, yes, I am.
So that's the lesson. You don't have to be perfect. I mean, nobody's perfect. You just have to be a little further down the road. So like let's say we go over here to Anytime Fitness and you want to learn how to bench press. Am I the best bench press world champion? No, I'm not the bench press world champion.
But you are there.
But I've laid down on that bench to bench press thousands of times. And if you've never done it, I can help you.
Yeah, you can.
Because I know a little bit about it. There's probably somebody in this community that knows more about it. There's probably someone with a degree in exercise physiology that knows more about it than I know about it. But if I'm here and you're there and you want to know,
yeah,
I can still help you. Even though there may be somebody that could do a better job, I'm still well qualified to get you started and get you halfway through this journey on your bench pressing or whatever thing it is. So I want to encourage people listening to this, get some disciples. You know how many you start with?
One.
Yeah. Just start with one. I was at Dave & Buster's in Little Rock, and I was meeting some friends of ours, and it's Elsa and Trevor Stafford, and Elsa's dad pastors a church in Monterrey, Mexico. And when he was at Dave & Buster's, he introduced me to his wife and to his disciple. He said, "This is my wife and this is my disciple." He flew his disciple up from Mexico to Little Rock on his trip to see his daughter and son-in-law. And I looked at him, he said, "I only have one disciple, brother." I said, "That's one more than most people have."
You're right. You're right.
So I would start with one. And you may be too busy. I understand that. If you're too busy, you're too busy. I felt like I should disciple my wife. I felt like I should disciple my kids. I felt like my children and my wife needed to see my example and play it out in front of them. So they were my first disciples, most important first disciples. But then, I was a pastor, a youth pastor and a pastor for the last 30 years. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for people who are kind of looking for me. And when it comes to discipleship, I feel like it requires commitment on both people. So if I'm really committed to you, but you're not very committed to me, it's not going to work out. Like with Philip, I was committed to Philip. We didn't exchange vows. I mean, there was no document signed.
Right.
We're brothers. We're going to stick together no matter what. Sign your name here. We never did that. But my heart, he was in my heart. I liked him. I cared about him. I respected him. I wanted to be around him. And I could see that he was light years ahead of me in spiritual matters. I mean, way ahead of me. Like, he was a third generation pastor. I was a third generation nothing. I mean, I was a nothing spiritual. My mom told me that my dad's dad, who I never met, he died before I was born, could quote the Bible. But I don't remember hearing anybody in my family quote the Bible, ever. So Philip, even though he wasn't Billy Graham, he wasn't the Pope, he wasn't Thomas Trask, the general superintendent of the Assemblies of God, he was just Philip Roop. He was a 35-year-old youth pastor. But he was my guy. I had access to him. He was real. He was tangible. I could call him. He would come to my house. I would go to his house. I mean, he was like a person that I actually knew. And the reason I mention it like that is because you have a lot of people today who are like, well, I'm being discipled by blah, 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 blah. And they live in Philadelphia. And I've read their books. That's who's discipling me. Well, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's not really discipleship unless you can be there with them. So after Philip Roop, I got under Mark Carbaugh. Mark Carbaugh took the reins of discipling me, and he became my pastor and my discipler. And I never told him, hey, you're my discipler. But I watched everything this guy did, everything, through service and submission. He was my pastor, so I served his vision. I submitted to him. But in that process, as I served and submitted to his leadership, I watched everything he did. I watched how he thought, how he processed information, and I assimilated everything that he did into my personality. And I can use it anytime I want. And he was a second-generation pastor.
That's good. That's good.
Well, it's good for me.
Yeah, that's
it's great for me.
Yeah.
But the reason I understand these things is because first of all, I read my Bible. Second of all, I've had a call on my life for discipleship from very early on. That's why I went to Teen Challenge to work in the first place. I wanted to make disciples. I did not want to, do anything else. Like, this is the central focus of the church, in my opinion, is the work of the church is making disciples, training, helping, equipping people to become better versions of Jesus, better Christians. All right, so how does this thing work? I say it works one relationship at a time. Jesus had 12 disciples. Paul had 3 spiritual sons in the New Testament, Timothy, Titus, and Onesimus. How many do you have?
Yeah, Onesimus.
Good old Onesimus.
I forgot about that character.
Yeah, he's got a cool name. So here's the question, and who are you intentionally helping follow Jesus today? The Great Commission isn't fulfilled by attending church. It's fulfilled when disciples make disciples. So let's hypothetically play out a local church in Independence County here with 50 members that attend on a Sunday, give or take. 50 people show up. And those 50 people all decide within the next 2 weeks they're going to get a hold of somebody and start discipling them. So they do it. So now your church of 50 goes to 100 because you're going to bring your disciple to church.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do. And they're following you. So you go to church. So because you go to church, they go to church. So now your church goes from 50 to 100. And let's just say you're pretty good at discipleship, and it takes you about 4 years for this person to really blossom to where you feel like, hey, we're done. You're good. I can't teach you anything else. You need to find another person to disciple you, or you're so in that process, that 4-year process, your disciple, what do? Well, they're following your example. So they find a disciple.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they've been watching you do it.
Right.
They've been watching you pour your life out for them. So they go, aha, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to authentically love people. You're supposed to genuinely give people your precious time. You're supposed to pour your life out for them because that's what Brother Lonnie did for me. So now I'm going to do it for someone else. And they see it. It's easy to see when it happens, when someone does this for you. So then they pour their life out for someone else. And so now you're free from your disciple. So what do? Well, you find another disciple. Because you're not going to just sit here twiddling your thumbs and waiting for Jesus to come back. You're going to be productive in your knowledge of Christ. You're going to go out there and make another disciple. So now the church grows to what?
Maybe 200.
150, 200? Yeah. And how's the church growing? Is it growing because we got a great preacher? Nope. Is it growing because we got great music? Nope. Is it growing because we got the best carpet in town? Nope. Is it growing because we got the most expensive steeple, $120,000? Nope. It's growing because we got people in our church who love Jesus and are fulfilling the Great Commission. And I think that is the healthiest kind of growth because everybody is relationally connected. Everybody likes everybody. I mean,
there's always,
there could be little hiccups in there, but like if you dedicate time and energy and life to me, am I going to hate you for that? I mean, if I'm mentally ill, maybe.
I don't think
if I'm like a crazy person, but if you do that, my heart is drawn to you. I mean, I'm like, wow, this guy's really helping me. I mean, I can remember telling people about Philip Root when I was a new believer, like my stepmom. I was telling her about the church and stuff in Cape, and I was telling her about Philip. She's like, oh, you are so lucky. You are so lucky to have someone like that in your life. He has taken an interest in you. And I was like, well, okay. I was too ignorant to know what I really had.
Yeah.
But what it's done is it's once you've made a disciple and watched them grow and mature and they're on their own doing their own thing, it's very difficult to just sit back and not do that again. And to me, the reason why is because those relationships with people that you disciple, they're the best. I mean, I have a young man. Of course, he's 40 now. He's not young anymore, but he calls me his spiritual father. He says, "You're my spiritual father."
Well, that's good. That's really good.
Well, it makes me feel great.
Yeah, I think it would. Yes.
And he's not homeless and he's not in prison. You know what I mean? He is. He's very successful financially. He's got a beautiful family. His wife and children are perfect. I mean, they're precious. He's got a ministry. He's administratively gifted. I mean, he's put together great. Like from where I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
I have not discipled him. I haven't really mentored him in over 20 years. And he still says, "You're my spiritual father." And it's like, if he called me and said, "Hey, I need you. I need help."
You'd be there.
I'd be there in 1 second. Yeah, would.
I know you would. Yeah. I'm absolutely 100% sure of that. Yes.
So our relationship, these discipleship relationships are just floating by us all the time as believers. And I think we'd be wise to pray and try to latch on a little bit and see how that goes. You can try to latch on to somebody and disciple them and they can, I don't want to do that. This is strange. I don't like it. Okay, fine. Let them go. Just let them go. But if somebody will see what you're trying to do and be thankful and appreciative and grateful and, you can, what I'm saying? There's an exchange of life that can really happen. To me, it's the best. I mean, it's super cool. I've got another guy that I would call, he's about 5 years older than me, so it's hard to call him a spiritual son. But when he showed up at church, I felt like the Lord said, mentor him, disciple him. And so I just started talking to him. I said, "Hey, let's go out. You got to start spending time with people. Hey, let's go eat lunch. Hey, let's go talk. Hey, let's go do this. Hey." I found out he could play guitar. I was leading worship in the youth group with my guitar, and I was like, "Hey, you want to lead worship? You want to take my job?" He's like, "Okay." He could not play with the drummer. I mean, it was a train wreck for about a month. Yeah, he could play on the couch, great, but he couldn't play with the drummer.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we worked through all that, and he was very intelligent. He was a professional guy. He was a chiropractor in Cape Girardeau, and man, I just love this guy, man. I mean, we had so much fun too. I mean, we would go take mission trips. It was cool too because in the chiropractic world, he was way ahead of me. I mean, I had nothing. I had nothing to offer the chiropractic world, so he would lead these chiropractic mission trips, and I would bring church people along, and they do free adjustments in the town squares of these third world countries. And then we'd share the gospel with the people that would gather. So we'd have 30-something thousand people in 9 days. We'd preach the gospel to.
Man.
And so it was a cool thing. But he was one of my guys that I was mentoring. But it turned out in his own domain, he would mentor me kind of. Like I'd be like,
"Sure,
you're the leading this trip, brother. You just tell me what you want me to do."
Well, if you didn't know how to, as my wife says, a bone cracker.
Yeah.
A bone cracker, which is understandable because they usually pop. But anyway, that's interesting, brother. That's good that you're.
Well, I just want to challenge people in a loving way and say this: make a disciple. Go after somebody. And I wouldn't make it weird. I wouldn't be like, come follow me. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But I would be like, hey, you want to go eat lunch? Hey, do you need some help? Hey, and start to, and make sure that there are people out there that'll just use you. So you don't want that. You want somebody that's going to receive. Yeah, they're going to use you to a degree. They're going to take what you're offering them. But at some point, they should have a mind to, I call it ROI, return on investment. You want a good ROI with your disciples. You don't just want to get a bunch of leeches that are never going to be productive in their knowledge of Christ. They're just going to drain you. You don't want that, at least in my opinion. I mean, if God's called you to that, then fine, do that. But for me, I want to pour my life out for people that are going to take it and run with it and build ministries and do stuff, do amazing exploits for Christ. So that's it. That's all I got.
Very good. Go ahead.
Lord, we just thank you for the Great Commission, and we thank you for the Apostle Paul and how he admonished people to follow his example. And Lord, we recognize that none of us are perfect, and none of us are truly qualified like you were to make disciples, but nevertheless, we do have something to offer someone. And so, Lord, I ask you to help us to find those people that we can mentor and lead and help, and we can help them get along to the next level, so they in turn can turn around and help someone else get along to the next level. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.